What's up, guys? Welcome into yet another edition of Benstant Reaction, instant reaction to scores, news, games, breaking news, whatever it may be. And as we're doing it here, a little bit of a later Benstant reaction to the Lions and Arizona Cardinals after the Detroit Lions beat the Arizona Cardinals 20-13. And there's a lot to unpack in this game, but let's get started right here. You can pretty much narrow it down to this exactly. The Detroit Lions came in fearless. They were creative on offense, hooking laterals, throwing the ball downfield, aggressive to the point of the attack with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. And more than anything, they showed they can win ugly. This was not a great showing from the Detroit Lions. They left the door open multiple times. And if the Cardinals were a great team, they would have won this game. If they were the Chiefs, if they were the 49ers of years before, if they were the Ravens of last year, even the Ravens of today, any one of those great teams, you leave the door open, you will pay the price. Cardinals didn't make the Lions pay the price. As the Lions played aggressive, were creative on offense, and showed they can win ugly, on the inverse, the Cardinals did everything differently. They were timid. They were not creative on offense, especially after that Kyler Murray interception, which was awful, but you have to trust your quarterback. We'll get to that in just 1 second. And then lastly, they showed they can't win ugly yet. And I say yet because I predicted this team was going to lose. I knew this team was going to lose. This was a clear mismatch from the get-go. The Cardinals do not have a great rushing defense. The Detroit Lions, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery have a tremendous rushing attack, and it only hurt that much more when the guy who sealed the game wasn't David Montgomery, wasn't Jahmyr Gibbs, but it was Jared Goff doing his best Kyler Murray impression. And here's what I'll say on the Arizona Cardinals front. I am one to easily spew blame on the quarterback. Kyler Murray was sensational to this game up until that first and only interception. Up until that one interception, Kyler Murray had not made a mistake all season long. He was crisp, he was clean, he was good in the pocket, and I hadn't seen one of those, oh my bleeping gosh, what are you doing throwing that ball, Kyler Murray? He did that today. Forced a ball downfield to Marvin Harrison Jr. It wasn't great. I didn't love it, and therefore that was one of the reasons they lost this game. But let's switch it over to coaching. Drew Petzing, the offensive coordinator, I do believe is a creative and good offensive coordinator. I do think that. I know sometimes it's easy to throw him under the bus, but here's what I got to say to Drew Petzing. You have to trust your quarterback. And they did not trust Kyler Murray after throwing that first pick. They didn't trust Kyler Murray in that first game against the Buffalo Bills. When everything is going well, they perfectly trust Kyler Murray. You have to be okay with the fact that he's going to make mistakes. Look at Sean McDermott in Buffalo. Look at the Kansas City Chiefs or Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes sometimes can throw the most egregious interceptions. Andy Reid still trusts the guy. Reels him back in, helps out figure out his mechanics, and allows him to figure it out and learn from his mistakes. Josh Allen, for the longest time, led the league in turnovers. Hasn't thrown a singular interception or fumbled the ball once this year. They reel him back in. Joe Brady did so and said, this is what we're going to do to keep you from throwing more interceptions. Kyler Murray threw a horrendous pick today. It was atrocious. It was inexcusable. Kyler Murray, which we'll get to in a second, in his press conference said he wishes he had that one back. He felt like they were going to score there. You have to trust your quarterback. And Drew Petzing, after that interception, just blatantly did not trust his quarterback. And you can't have that. You have what I believe is an 8 to 10 best quarterback in the NFL. And you didn't trust him. The offensive coordinator from Drew Petzing now has had his second bad game in 3 instances. I think he's very creative. I think he gets way too much flack for the Arizona Cardinals losing today. But you have to trust your quarterback. You have to trust Kyler Murray. Because early on in this game, he was making plays left and right and was picking up exactly where he left off in the Los Angeles Rams game. But he throws one bad pick. You reel it in. Everything is conservative. Michael Wilson has 8 catches for 30 yards. You're throwing everything over the middle. It's a lot of drag routes. And then to the point where everyone is freaking out because Kyler Murray is taking shots downfield to Marvin Harrison Jr. because he's the only one downfield. And just really quickly, to the Arizona Cardinals crowd, to the Arizona Cardinals fans that are now blaming Kyler Murray, now don't want him here, whatever. It was very clear that Kyler Murray was not just targeting Marvin Harrison Jr. all game. He was easily targeting who was the most penalized player in the NFL in Terrion Arnold. He's a rookie. Kyler tried to exploit it. Now, did he do that to a fault? Yes. But he wasn't just targeting Marvin Harrison Jr. He wasn't just trying to get him the ball. He wasn't just trying to make it his job to give him the ball. He was targeting Terrion Arnold. It happened. He's got to learn from it. You got to reel that back in. And then lastly, Jonathan Gannon. I think this game rests squarely on the shoulders of Jonathan Gannon. What I got to say is this defense is clearly better than I ever thought it could be. Granted, it was really bad on the run game today, and at times couldn't get a stop, especially on 3rd and 13 when they needed it. But this defense shows very clearly why Jonathan Gannon is a very good head coach. A way to simply look and specify if a coach can indeed coach in the NFL and be a head coach and a leader amongst men in the NFL is, can he get his side of the ball correct? And he's done that with a lot of non-talented guys out there. Dante Stills didn't play last week. This week has a sack. Played effectively. Mack Wilson is one of the best, most underrated signings of the NFL season. That's because of Jonathan Gannon. So I want to give Jonathan Gannon that credit. I know he can coach. I know he's a leader amongst men. And he's taken what are lawn deck chairs and untalented players, or at least not as talented players, to greater heights. He's done that. And he gave the offense a chance to win. But this game does rest squarely on the shoulders of the head coach, Jonathan Gannon. There were way too many instances today where he made the exact wrong decision. Early in the game, there was a 4th and 1. You couldn't stop the opposing offense at that point in the game. You didn't go for it. Then there was another decision later on in the game where you get an interception and you don't get points out of that. Dennis Gardeck picks off the ball. The most unlikely of people to pick off the ball. It's a huge momentum swing. And you get 0 points out of it because you're running a 4th and 1 play in plus territory where you have a gimme of a field goal for a guy in Matt Prater. That can't happen. Too many instances today where Jonathan Gannon did not make the right decision. Some of them on 4th down calls, some of them on player personnel, not blitzing Jared Goff on the final play of the game not blitzing Jared Goff on what was the 3rd and 13 that eventually got converted by Demontre St. Brown. I was literally pointing to my wife and said, I've seen this too many times. They're going to drop back in coverage, and this guy, Demontre St. Brown's going to catch a ball. And immediately he did. Jonathan Gannon's got to be better. It was one of his worst coach games, and if I'm not mistaken, this was Jonathan Gannon's worst game as a head coach. Personnel issues, bad play calling issues, going for it on 4th and 1, and then running just bad play calls, trying to escape Kyler Murray off the edge and not getting a first down instead of giving it to what is one of the best goal line backs in the NFL in James Conner. This game rests squarely on the shoulders of Jonathan Gannon. Not getting in the ear of your offensive coordinator and saying, you need to trust Kyler Murray, even though he threw an interception, trust your franchise quarterback. Personnel was an issue. The idea of bad play calling on 4th down. The decision to go for it on 4th and 7. There was just every time it seemed like I would have done the opposite. JG, who is a much more accomplished head coach or anything that I'll be in the NFL, did the opposite, and it was just a bad day. Coaches have bad days. I don't think Jonathan Gannon's a bad coach. I think he's a leader amongst men. I think he is still one of the better young and up-and-coming head coaches in the NFL. But it was a bad game. The play calling wasn't great. The decision-making wasn't great. The personnel on some plays were not great. Going for it on 4th down and then not going for it on 4th down, it just didn't make any sense. Early in the game, it's 4th and 1. You have the defense on their heels. You just scored and you punt the ball. I understand your own territory, but you got to be able to get 1 yard when you need it. Then 4th and 1 after you get the pick from Dennis Gardeck, the most unlikely of people to pick off the ball. You get 0 points from it. You don't kick the field goal. And then on 4th and 7 at what was basically midfield, you're going for it. It was just a horrendously called game from Jonathan Gannon at his core. I don't put this game on Kyler Murray. I don't think he was trusted enough. And that also is an issue with Jonathan Gannon. He has to get in the ear of his OC and say, you got to trust your player. You got to trust your quarterback. You got to throw the ball downfield. And he didn't do that. Coaches have bad games. It doesn't mean anything. And just a quick preview before I end this and get to what will be the Commanders next week. I do believe this Cardinals team is right where they need to be. I don't think you should overreact. It was a tough loss. We expected to lose this game. But through 3 weeks of the season, this is exactly who we thought the Cardinals were going to be. Competitive, frisky, at times undisciplined, still young, figuring it out, well coached, not a lot of penalties. That's exactly what we wanted them to be. Play really good teams tough. Don't get blown out. Beat the teams you're supposed to beat. And be 2-2 through 4 weeks. That's all the calling card was. If I told you the Arizona Cardinals were going to be 2-2 through 4 weeks, with 2 of those games being the Buffalo Bills and the Detroit Lions, 2 perennial playoff teams, you would have taken it. Cardinals are exactly where they're supposed to be. Don't overreact. Kyler Murray is still a very good quarterback. Jonathan Gannon is still a very good head coach and especially a very good leader. Games like these happen. It felt like a winnable game, but this feels like the game that the Cardinals win in week 16, when they're more mature, when they've been given a chance to grow, when they've been watching more film, when they've been playing more games. Usually, I'm the guy that's brutally honest and says there is no moral victories here. But you got to be honest. The Cardinals are exactly who we thought they were through 3 weeks. And if they beat the Commanders next week, and I believe they will, which will be a revenge game against Cliff Kingsbury, they're going to get up for that game. And what will be a coaching mismatch between Jonathan Gannon and Cliff Kingsbury. They'll be 2-2 and exactly where we wanted them to be a quarter of the way through the season. No need to panic. No need to overreact. This team is just fine.